Thank you very much
Thank you for having me.
for giving a talk in the Craftsman Event Series. You are a partner and chief economist at Deloitte Beijing. You're an expert in the economic relations between the United States and China, for example. What is the current state of that relationship? And is it going to get better or even worse?
Well, this is a very important relationship for China. It's the most important relationship. Without a healthy Sino-US relationship, there will be just more challenges, and that's going to make economic reform implementation more difficult. On the other hand, a better Sino-US relationship would actually be a catalyst for deepening economic reform. In 2020, I see an improving Sino-US relationship.
So the politicians are listening and they are being swayed by the economic facts.
Well, politicians at this point, I think they focus on quick wins. They are becoming more realistic, and the speeches from Vice President Pence recently are more measured, and the Huawei supply and give additional days, 90 days. And this is reflecting a more nuanced views on China taken by the US. From China's perspective, quietly, and the financial sector being opened up, I can give you numerous examples, even on intellectual property crime, just on latest development, greater penalty on IPR infringement. So I think both sides want to have a deal this year.
The United States wanted to achieve structural changes to the Chinese economy. Basically, China was asked to change its economic model from the ground up. Has that been achieved?
That would be difficult because every country has its own development path. I don't think you can just cut and paste from one country to another. That would be naive because cultural factors are so predominant. I think the state will always have an important role in direct Chinese economy. But of course, at the same time, I think Chinese economy will be more open up. I think that's what China is going to do. I don't think China would ever have this big bang type of liberalization reform as in country in the UK and United States. But on the other hand, I see just creeping reform and deregulation.
So why would the United States try to arrive at a deal if its major goal has not been achieved and seems to be impossible to be achieved? Is it just because the US economy has suffered and a deal seems to be necessary to overcome that suffering?
I think from US perspective, if you really want to bring about so-called structural changes, it's really just not realistic. But on the other hand, if you have some quick wins, take baby steps, and perhaps that will lead to more meaningful changes down the road. For example, improved market access. For example, lower tariffs of imported products.
So that is a step-by-step.
I would say so, yeah.
I see. There are other problems. They're not just trade and economic problems, but there are also severe geopolitical concerns by the American government, be it the South China Sea, what the United States calls Chinese militarization. There's concern about the competition in Africa, and there are many other areas. What about that? Will that rivalry continue, or will that also become benignly resolved?
I think that rivalry would continue because at some point, the size of the Chinese economy will surpass that of the US. It's really just a matter of time. Right? You got 4 times the population, you got a faster growth rate. So that rivalry, I think, is inevitable. But it could be a healthy rivalry. For example, like sports. We are in Chapel Hill, like in basketball, you compete with Duke, I mean, that's a very good rivalry.
Wow. I'm not quite sure that the rivalry between Duke and UNC can be compared to the rivalry between China and the United States. Isn't it slightly more serious?
Of course, the rivalry I define would be you have more clearly defined rules, right? And you also accept the other party maybe to take leading position in certain field. Again, just like in sports, you cannot win all the medals, right? You cannot be number one in every field.
Thank you. Let's talk briefly about the European position. Europe, traditionally a close ally of the United States, is seen being wooed by China, what we call the so-called charm offensive. Can you see that Europe is moving closer into the Chinese orbit, at least economically, and loosening its links to the United States because of that charm offensive?
Yeah. Europe is in a more delicate situation. Europe does not like so-called unilateralism, and that's something Europe does not like. Europe prefer to deal with all these issues in global trading system, but of course that's less efficient. Europe is feeling vulnerable to so-called platform economy, right? Europe does not have all these big tech companies, Facebook, Google, Amazon, so on and so forth. Interestingly, China also has some of these platform economies, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. At the same time, Chinese government is playing a stronger role in direct investment. So I think what Europe is likely to do is to perhaps take a more restrictive policies towards China's investment in certain fields and in certain countries. At the same time, I think Europe is likely to maybe learn from China and having its own industrial policies in certain sectors. I'm not sure whether that's a good medicine, but that's what Europe is likely to do.
A good example is Huawei, isn't it? Huawei, or in the case of Huawei, Europe is torn between a more pro-China acceptance of Huawei technology in many countries and being as restrictive as the US would like Europe to be regarding acceptance of Huawei technology, particularly in G5 systems.
That's a very interesting observation. As of now, no major European country has said in public they would block Huawei in 5G. In fact, I think Germany is actually taking a quite open approach. UK is going to make a decision very quickly based on national security. Right now it's 50-50. But in many countries, I think they will use Huawei in 5G technology purely for economic reasons.
So does that mean that the influence of the United States on Europe is waning? Because the United States would like the Europeans to block, as you say.
Sure. I mean, again, in this very integrated international economy, that approach very often does not work.
Si Tao Xu, thank you very much for your insights. Very much appreciated that you have come to see us at UNC Chapel.
Thank you for having me again.